Well, good morning. Welcome. Apparently, when I speak, people get sick, whether it's me or Bob or whatever. So if you get nauseous today, just feel free to leave. But do pray for Pastor Bob and his family. If you've had a sick family before and you've been sick yourself, like that's a hard thing because you're trying to take care of somebody else and not feeling well yourself. So definitely pray for them. Hopefully we'll get them back very soon. A couple of announcements for you. First announcement, next week you want to make sure that you are in participation. That service at 11, right? That service is 11 o'clock at our Barnes Road, our Marion campus. It's going to be awesome. Weather permitting, we are hoping to be outside for this service. Brad's got a cool stage and all that. It's going to be awesome. You don't want to miss it. And then immediately after that service, you want to be inviting people. I'm sure we're going to have Facebook and social media stuff going. Make sure you share that to our Extraordinary Easter. This is an amazing event for families. We're going to have a huge Easter egg hunt. Ivan's got inflatable bounce houses, which he promised we would do. Did you get the catapult, the battering ram deal? Okay, we're getting this thing that if you haven't seen this, it's a great giant inflatable wrecking ball, which is as fun as it sounds. And so Ivan has volunteered to let anybody knock him over with that wrecking ball if you so desire. So that's worth the price of admission, which is free. So make sure you come for that. It'll be a lot of fun. If you have any questions, see us in Next Steps. We'd love to. The other thing I want to mention this morning is, and normally we don't mention it this early, but I'm going to, this is something to celebrate. If you have a high school student who is interested in camp, I want to encourage you to get them signed up if they're not. Here's why. Typically, last year we took, I think, 40 kids to camp. This year, as of today, we have 46 students signed up to go. So super cool, going to be a lot of fun. But here's why that's important and the reason I'm announcing. If you have a student that's kind of on the edge, you're like, I think so, maybe. I need you to sign up because space is going to be super limited this year because of the number of students we're taking. So make sure you're in attendance next week. Going to be really cool. We're going to do some awesome Palm Sunday services. We'll talk about more of that here in a second. But as we get started today, we're going to talk about love, right? Talk about love. We're going into Easter, and some of the big things that happen around this is God displaying His love through us. But in order to get you in the framework for love, here's what I need. By show of hands, how many of you are pet people? Pet people. How many have pets? Okay. Chad, like alpacas don't count, okay? Like, yeah, that doesn't count. Yeah, pet people, okay? I'm a pet person. How many of you are not pet people? Okay, all right. Work on your joy level, that's fine. So our family is a pet family. My wife came to us our first year of marriage. I just started a new job and was working late, and she says, I need a cat. I need a cat. Now, how many of you hate cats? You hate cats? Okay. How many of you like cats? Okay, I'm indifferent. I like our cats. I'm not really a hater of cats. I like our cats. So my wife made an exception. She said, I think we have a picture. This is my cat. Is it up there? There it is. This is, prepare, brace yourself. This is going to be a hard moment for me. This cat's name is Aubie. And if you're wondering, yes, that is the name for the Auburn mascot. And yes, I'm angry. Okay, and so, yeah, this is my cat, Aubie. Okay, here's what you need to know about Aubie. Aubie's the greatest cat that's ever walked Earth, okay? As far as, I'm not talking tigers or whatever. Let's get them in a different category. Like, I'm talking domesticated house cat. Here's why Aubie is the greatest cat. Aubie doesn't act like a cat. Maybe that means I hate cats. I don't know. So Aubie, from the time he was born, would play fetch. He would chase a ball. He would be very rough. Now, this is important because we have a second cat. This is our other cat. Katniss is her name. And the look that Katniss is giving you right now is her permanent look, okay? It is the look of, you disgusting human. Feed me immediately and leave. That is Katniss. I'm not sure she's saved. I'm pretty sure Aubie's saved, but we don't know about Katniss. These are my animals. And for years, I'm a dog person. I grew up with large dogs. I saw someone's Facebook status the other day that said, you know how they describe yourself, like me, I'm married to Joe and a student ministry pastor. Someone's status on their thing says, I want to pet your dog. And I was like, oh, I identify with that. I went hiking yesterday, and every dog was like, oh, hello, hi, all of these things. Like, I love dogs. And Aubie was my saving grace for so many years because he acted like a dog. He wanted to play. Every night of my life, I get in my bed and Aubie sits right here and asks to be petted. He's a dog cat, I don't know. And so, but recently, our life has gotten better. There's more love in our life because we have gotten this. This is my Phoebe, and I love her very much. She's now humongous. I think we have one more picture. You say, you're just showing pictures because you love your dog. You're right, yeah. This is Phoebe. We went hiking yesterday. This is her face of, why are we still walking? I don't understand. Go back to Albie for a second. Here's Albie for years saved me from having to have a dog because he acted like a dog. And I remember a few months ago, Ivan and Crystal were at our house having dinner, and I was explaining how Albie was like a dog. I mean, literally, he'll walk and roll over, and I'll pet him, and all this stuff, just like a dog. And I was explaining to Ivan and Crystal how much Albie was dog-ish, and they didn't believe me, which was hurtful. And so I decided that I would show them. So I called Albie, and he came because he's a dog. And I began, you know how you would pat a dog on the belly like this? I began to do that to Albie. I would pat him on the belly, and to prove my point, I did it a little harder than I probably normally do to Albie. And when I proceeded to do it, Albie he loves it. He loves the rough. He wants to be pushed around and all this stuff. But apparently where I hit him, I knocked the wind out of him. And so here is Albie now trying to be petted, and then he just kind of falls on the floor and is like, am I lying? He goes, and I'm like, oh no, I just killed the greatest cat in the world. Like, this is a problem. And Ivan said these words to me, and I quote, he said, you might want to change the way you love. Of course, I felt bad because I'm trying to prove my point, and then Albie's like dead on the floor. He survived. He's alive. But that brings us to the question we're going to talk about today. What is love? We just came out of a series on beautiful design. We talked about biblical manhood, biblical womanhood. How does that look like if you're single, if you're married, whatever area you find yourself on the plane. And the common denominator at the root of that is we are called to show love. Now here's the problem. What is it? How do we define this? You know, and a lot of times we let other people define love for us. Here's what I mean. Like, love is actually kind of hard to define. Like, we know what it is. Oh, I love that person, or I love, but it's actually, if you try to sit down and put actual verbiage to it, it's kind of challenging. Let's do this. Let me give you an example. I love tacos. I love Auburn football. I love Phoebe. But not the same way I love Joe, my wife. You see, when you start to break it out, love can have such a broad characteristic to it. And a lot of times we let other people define love for us. When I was in college, I got a business degree, and I remember I was one of my best friends in college. She's still a great friend. Her name is Sarah, and Sarah is one of those people. If you're around Sarah, you feel stupid. Okay, it doesn't matter if you're good at school or not. She's just a brilliant person, a great finance person. And so, in all of my finance classes, if I was confused on a term or a definition, I would ask Sarah. Sarah, I was thinking about this today. Sarah could have, she had right sway over my grades, because she could have said, no, that means this, and I would have written it down. I would have written it down, and it could have been completely wrong. The problem is we are going to culture, and we're asking, what is love? So I broke it down. Here's what I think culture defines love is. Here's the first one. Feelings. Feelings. Think about this. If this person or this thing makes me feel good, therefore I will give it affection. I will give it love. We base love on feelings. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, that's a teenager thing. That's the thing. It's just, it's the puppy love, all this stuff. Then ladies, explain to me why chick flicks are sold out. It's a feeling. And guys, don't laugh, because I had the same feeling when I got in my truck the first time. I'm in love, right? You know? It's a feeling. Now, here's the problem. The problem with feelings is feelings fade. Feelings fade. Don't believe me? My wife and I got in an argument about how long our honeymoon stage lasted. You know what I'm talking about? The honeymoon stage, where it's like, oh, it's bliss reality, right? And here's how sad this is. We were arguing between 1 week. And I was saying, you think, wow, man, how many weeks you made it? Three. That's when we established our honeymoon. I was lobbying for 4 just to have some semblance of decency in our marriage. But she was like, no, I'm pretty sure it was 3 weeks and it was over. The feelings fade. So feelings is one way to define love. Here's another way. Romance. Now, I gave romance this term. This is a broad term. So romance is this. If you love me, you will do. And then we let everybody else fill in the blank of the do. So maybe the do is a bouquet of roses. Guys, I saw the other day a bouquet of beef jerky roses. That sounded fun. I don't know. And so if you love me, you will clean the house. If you love me, you will buy me flowers. If you love me, you will put a ring on it, right? All of those things, feelings, romance. Here's the last one. Relationships. We define love by relationships. Because I chose you, I now love you. And you must choose me in order to love me. Now think about it. Here's the problem with those 3. I'm not mad at any of those things. You think I'm going to get up here, if you're a guy in here, you're like, great, yes, I don't have to buy flowers anymore. Not the point of the message. Here's the point. All of those things are not love. They can be the fruit of love. If I'm still coming into year 5 of marriage going, we haven't really gotten back to any of those feelings, that's a problem, right? Should be the fruit. If there's no romance, that's a problem because it's the fruit. Same thing with relationships. But they are not love. So the problem with all of these things is that they can be done extremely selfishly. Think about it. You ever use somebody? I know we wouldn't do this in church, but have you ever used somebody for a feeling? Hey, did you like the work I did, honey? Was it good? Is it really good? Because I need to feel good. Have you ever gone, and I've done this, maybe I'm the only one. Have you ever bought flowers for your wife so that she would tell you how good of a husband you are because you bought the flowers? Selfish. Relationships can be used selfishly. Here's the deal. If we're going to understand what love is and how it works in our life, we have to move out of the fruit of love. We have to move into what God has called us to. Because here's what happened. Probably in this beautiful design series, we've hit that plateau point. It's where you're kind of going down where, man, I got beat up down here by the failures that I had in different areas, and I want to do better, so I'm trying to do better now. And now you've hit that point where it's no longer, you need a little more motivation. You need something that reorients you to go, okay, I'm going to step into love again. Here's what we're trying to do today. And this is important because when Jesus was asked, what is the greatest commandment? He told him love. Look at the passage. Here's what the passage says. Matthew 22, but when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together, and one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. Put the context. Jesus is changing the entire religious structure. He's changing their entire ideology and coming and saying, listen, you thought it was all about the law? It's not about the law. I'm coming with love and grace and mercy. And he's messing up these religious people. Here's what he says, verse 36, Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And he, Jesus, said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. And this is the great and first commandment. And the second is like unto it, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commands depend all the law and the prophets. Jesus says, love is the greatest commandment. And I think everybody in this room would go, yes. And that brings us back to our question. What is love? So to answer it, we got to start in the first place. Here's the first place. Point number 1. When we're thinking about trying to define what is love, we got to go with this. You were created to love and be loved. You were created to love and be loved. And I almost didn't make this a point when I wrote this message. But then I thought about it. The fact that this needs to be a point speaks to how much this world and culture and Satan is fighting against a correct definition of love. The fact that we need to be told you were designed to love and be loved speaks to something going very, very wrong. See, God has placed a desire within us. Sometimes during services, I'll go and I'll check on the nursery because sometimes things are on fire and we have to put the things out. And so I try to go in there, and one week I went over there and they needed some extra help, so I stepped in to the nursery and was trying to be some help. They're much better than I am, but I'm trying to just be. And so my thing that I can do is I can play with the kids. And one of the kids wanted to play trains. She wanted to play trains, and she was taking the trains, and her method of playing trains was flinging them against the wall. That was how she wanted to play trains, which was not the best way to play trains. Here's the problem. There was nothing wrong with that young girl playing trains. It was just how. And some of you have bought the lie that I don't deserve love because how it was shown to you was a wrong way. Some of you said, well, I have no love to give because of blank. And I want you to know that you were designed to love and be loved. Here's the second thing on this, is that only God can give you that love. A lot of times when I'm teaching the kids, I'll be going through the lesson, and how many of you ever taught kids lessons before? And they're very elementary, and you're thinking about them. And as I was teaching them, a lot of times I'll just I'll study it. I'll make sure I know what I'm talking about. And then when I go to teach, it's kind of like, okay, I know what I'm teaching to be good. And I won't think beyond that. I remember one time I was thinking about, we were teaching the kids on contentment. And the point of the lesson was that stuff can't give you what God can give you. Super simple concept. I remember looking at that going, okay, yeah, I totally agree with that. And as I was teaching that, God goes, yeah, stuff, Roger, can't give you what I can give you. And we know we were designed to love and be loved, but yet we try and fill that void with so many different things. Can I tell you stuff can't give you love? Can I tell you this? Another person can't give you love. That's a weight that your spouse, that your kids, that your parents were not designed to carry. Only God can give us this love. Here's the important thing about this. You cannot love without first being loved. You cannot love without first being loved. Anybody ever played paintball? Paintball is an interesting sport because when you run out of ammo, it shoots with a little CO2 air cartridge. When you run out of ammo, the gun makes the exact same sound. I found this out to my demise one time. I was playing paintball, and I was doing well. I mean, and then I saw these group of guys, and they were kind of all huddled up, and I was like, I'm going to go get them. And so I charged at them, not realizing I was out of paintball ammo. And here I am. It was like, there's nothing happened. Like this. And I got destroyed. And our love looks like that. Trying to love, but not letting ourselves be loved. I remember one time I sat down with Terry. And I was asking him a question on how I become a more loving person. If you haven't sat down with Terry, Terry's like, I call him Gandalf. And he's like the wizard that just peers into your soul and teaches you wisdom and all this stuff. And so I was asking him these questions, and Terry gave me this form. He gave me this form, and it was on the top of the form, it said, priorities in life. And it had all of these things listed out. It said God and me, your spouse and me and me, fun and me, escape and me, all of these things. List out your priorities. He said, put those in order. So I began to put them in order. Obviously, I knew God and me was supposed to be one. That's the good Christian answer. And then I didn't know what the next one was. So I kind of skipped, and we started talking about it, and I said, Terry, what is the order? And I thought, okay, it's got to be Joe. I got to put spouse on there, spouse and me right there. And he said, no, you got it wrong. I said, okay, help me. And he said, it needs to be you and you. I said, that seems selfish. He said, look at the verse. He said, when Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. We have bought the lie that Satan has sold us, that self-hate and shame is somehow an admirable quality. And I'm going to tell you that's from hell. That is not from God. God died on the cross to take away all of our condemnation. And if we cannot get to a point where we allow him to love us, warts and all, you will never be able to show that love to somebody else. You were designed to love and be loved. If we miss this, we've missed out on life. Here's the second thing. When we're trying to define love, you have to start with this basis, then you lead into this. We don't get to define love. You said, I thought that's what we were trying to do. We'll get there. You don't get to define love. God does. You don't get to define love. God does. Look at this verse, 1 John 4. It says, Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God, and everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. God is love. This week I've been watching a lot of basketball, even though my heart was broken last night, and as I was watching it, all of these different things, there would be debate on who would be the best basketball player today. I would probably say LeBron still has the title of right now. He's the best basketball player. You can make a case for the guy up in Milwaukee as well. Giannis, he's pretty good. But here's the deal. LeBron James is very good at basketball. I would say excellent. I would say a great player, maybe top 1, 2 I ever played. LeBron James is not basketball. Let me tell you what I mean. If LeBron James catches the ball and then proceeds to walk like this, you tell me what happens. It's a travel. If LeBron James shoots the basket and misses completely, how many points does he get? 0. If LeBron James doesn't make the playoffs, he doesn't win a championship. Because those are the rules. LeBron James is very, very, very good at basketball. But he's not basketball. And when it comes to defining love, God isn't just good at it. It's not like he's the LeBron James when it comes to love. It's not like he's the one who he's excellent at it, and so he's the one, watch him, emulate him. No, he is love. So if we're going to define what love is and what it should look like in our life, if it doesn't line up with who God is, then it isn't love. It isn't love. Since God is love, then in order to define it, we must examine him. Because if you were to examine love in different contexts, it might look differently. Let me explain. Imagine you were trying to define somebody what water was. And you said, hey, here is water, but you were in a room that was negative 20 degrees. Water to you might be hard. Or maybe you were in a room that was very, very hot. Water might be steam, or water might just be a liquid. We can't define it by the context, by the circumstances that we find ourselves in. Maybe you grew up in a home where dad wasn't there. Don't define love by your context. Maybe you have been the victim of an abusive relationship. Don't define love by that context. Maybe you grew up in a church that told you that God was all about a list of rules. Don't define love by that context. The way that we define love is we fix our eyes on Jesus and we let him be the entire summation of love. Not a good example, not the way we should follow, but love itself. Jesus. If what we call love doesn't align with who God is, then it isn't actually love. Let me be practical with this, and when it comes to relationships, at the risk of stepping on someone. I'm not against the 5 love languages. I'm not against these personality tests. In fact, I think they're helpful. I've done them. I enjoy them. But if you're basing your foundation of love on those things, realize that is at its core selfish. Because you're saying, this is the way that I receive love. This is the way that I give love. And if we're not careful, again, don't hear me wrong, I'm not against those things. I think they're helpful. But if that is the basis of your love and not God, then you have made yourself the source of love. I didn't mean to. I know. I didn't either. But I did it. God is the one who gets to define love. So let's get to the definition. Get to the definition. We've said you were designed to love and be loved. We don't get to define love. God does. Here's the definition that I've come up with from Scripture. Point number 3. Love always means dying. Anything less isn't love. Love always means dying. Anything less isn't love. Look at the verse. John 15, verse 13. It says, my command is this, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for his friends. John 3:16, arguably the most famous verse in Scripture. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. Love always moves away and outside of yourself. Love always focuses on giving and not getting. Love always means dying. When you look at Scripture, this is the consistent theme. When you boil it all down, we find the answer of what is love. Death, giving, sacrifice, always is at the root of it. And I remember when I came to this conclusion, was writing it down and thinking through some of this, I remember thinking, well, of course I would die. Of course, if Joe wanted me to, I would dive in front of a bullet for Joe. I would jump in front of a train. I'd do any of those things. Like I would give myself. But can I tell you, that is the easy place to die. It is. I would dare say everyone in this room would die physically if we needed to for someone we loved. If it became you or the car, and you, a kid in the car, you're taking the car. Like it's not even a choice. Like you're not even going to think about it. Just split second, you're happening. Here are the harder places to die. Here's a couple that I wrote down. If we're going to love, we have to die to expectations. Expectations. Parents, what are your expectations for your kids? What's the expectation for your marriage? What's the expectation for how you want your life to go? The Bible calls us to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And if we are going to do that, then we must die to our expectations. Literally, set down everything that we think we should get. Here's the second thing. Die to your perceptions. Perhaps you've grown up in a way that you developed a sense of what love is. And I just give tough love. Or I'm just kind of a pushover. Or I'm easygoing. Or whatever that is. Your perception of life, if you were going to step into love, has to die. We have to let God rewire how we look at the world and say, no, I'm gonna submit to him. I'm gonna submit to him. Your perception has to die. This is a big one for me. Your timing has to die. If you are going to love, like the Scripture calls this, your timing has to die. If you're like me, I always feel like God's behind schedule. Maybe it's me in my spiritual journey, and I feel like, man, I really want to be here, but God, I feel like I'm back here, and I'm trying to submit, I'm trying to grow, but I feel like it's just so slow. Or maybe it's in the growth of my marriage, and I'm going, okay, I'm hoping by this year we would have gotten past these things, and maybe it's even just normal life things like, I want you to hurry up. And God says, if you are going to love me, then you have to die to your timing. And man, I feel like we have put so much pressure on our young people when it comes to this thing of timing. Av and I were talking about this the other day. Like we have set all of these really cultural and social, and I'm not even mad at them, but all of these cultural and social timing things that we have said, okay, listen, this is when you become a man, and then this is when you're supposed to get a job, and this is when college got to happen right here, and all those things. Again, I'm not speaking against the wisdom of all those things. I'm saying, let God take your timing. You say, well, I feel like our marriage is just every. Have you given that timing to God? Because you realize God is outside of time. He's stepped outside of it. He's out of it. And he can look down and he can handle whatever we're going through. In that moment, die to expectations, perception, timing. Here's the fourth one. Comfort. Now, this can be convenience. We live in a world that idolizes comfort and convenience. I have a robot that vacuums my floor. Like, that is convenience at the highest level. And like, we live for this, and I'm not against those things, but if comfort has defined how you get or give love, then I'm going to challenge you to die to that. And this means so much more than getting up off the couch to do the dishes. Like this means, are you willing to be messy in showing love? That means it might cost you something. Change that. That means it will cost you something. That means that we are going to reach this community, if we're going to reach more teenagers, if we're going to reach more families who are looking, hear me, who are looking for real love, not this fake love, real love. If we are going to reach those families, it will be because we decided to die to comfort, to die to convenience, and to get messy for other people. Die to comfort. Here's the last one. And honestly, this is the one that, if we're honest, all of these go back to this one, is the one that's the hardest to let go. Die to control. Control. This is the one when we're thinking about love, like we want so desperately in our life to be in control. And no matter what that control looks like, for some of us, we have decided that we're going to work really hard. And we're going to earn a lot of money, and we're going to let that money, and I'm going to get a retirement account, and I'm going to do all of those things to where I have control over my future. Guilty. I've done it. For some of you, you say, well, money hasn't come easy, and so I'm gonna have control by the way we're just tough. Or we're cool. We're athletic. We're whatever you fill in the blank with. We are all vying for control. Here's what's so silly about that, is that we don't have very much control. I read this week about Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, who from a financial perspective, from a life perspective, he accomplished some of the most successful and highest feats of any businessman ever. Multi-millionaire, probably borderline billionaire. And when he died, he was a frail man. If you ever read his last statement, his memoirs, you need to go look it up today, because he went through and he began to list, and he said all of these achievements, all of these things that he sought for control in his life, he said, if I could go back, I wouldn't do it. If I could go back, here's the words that he used. He goes, I would cherish people. He said, I would treasure my family. He said, I would allow myself to experience love. Because he realized, he said this, he said, I don't have enough money to buy my sickness. We're not in as much control over our lives as we think we are. And you can get anti-lock brakes, and you can get security cameras, and you can have an investment plan, and all of those things. And God could go, today. What's the rich man in the Bible where he said, I'm going to build big barns and get bigger barns and all those stuff. And God said, you're a fool. Here's what's so beautiful about that. God doesn't stay at the fool part. Literally, can I just be transparent? I have been struggling these last 2 days when it comes to control. Because I'm bringing in a baby into this world, and all of the things that come with that. And man, there's pressures and concerns, and how are we going to pay for that? And does Joe work, or does she not work? Or do I need to make more money on this woodworking stuff, and I need to do this, and I need to get, and oh my goodness, now I got the tax bill, and all of these things begin to spiral out of control in my mind. And literally, I opened up my devotional today, and honestly, I didn't want to read it. I was frustrated. My plan, my timing, my control wasn't going according to my plan. And literally the top of the devotional said, ways not to worry. Thank you. You know, it's like, and the passage was in there was from Matthew or Luke, and where it talks about Jesus saying, listen, the birds. Have you seen the birds of the field? Like they don't gather, they don't harvest. I got them. Have you seen the flowers? They don't worry about what to wear, but yet they're more beautiful and more arrayed than the greatest king. And God said, I got it. I got it. We have to die to control. Here's why this is important. If we define love any other way than dying, than giving, than sacrificing, it will fall short of what God has called us to do. Can I show you this last verse? Philippians 2, verse 5. It says, have this mind among yourselves. Think like this, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of man, and being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even the death on the cross. Think about this for a second. We're about to go into this week, and I would encourage you, if you've never done any sort of meditation or fasting when it comes to passion and thinking about Christ's sacrifice, I'd encourage you to do that this week. You realize that God in heaven said, how do I get my love to people? Do I write it in the sky? Do I send an archangel? Do I do this? And God said, the way that I can think, the best way is for me to step into time and to give myself. Dying to his expectations. You realize what that verse says? That verse says that he had the right to claim all authority. He could have said, send him to eternal judgment, and he would have been justified. He set down his expectations. He set down his perceptions. His perception was that he was a holy God and this people sinned against him. They were unholy. I'll set it down. He set down his timing. His timing. You realize that God, this was the same God that could speak and worlds were made. Instantaneous timing. God said, you know what I'll do? I will step into time and I will come as a baby. And I'll wait 33 years to redeem fallen man. But I love him. He set down, obviously, his comfort, and he set down his control. He said, God, what do you want? I'll do it. I'll do it. I will show you love. Let me give you a couple questions. We'll be done. Here's the first question. First question. What definition of love are you using in your life? Is it yours? Is it culture's? Is it what you heard from your grandfather who told and he passed it? Or is it God's? Is it God's? Because there would be a real danger to go, no, I love my kids. Whose definition? No, I love my wife. I love people. Your definition or someone else's? Here's the second question. Second question is this: are you letting God love you? For some of you, that may be the subject that you need to meditate on this week. When you're thinking about Christ's sacrificial gift, you may have never thought of it in that perspective. You go, God, you loved me. Not the world, not everybody, not all the sinners, me. In my junk, in my mess, in my stuff, you loved me. Because I promise you, until you let God love you, you will not be able to love anybody else. Are you letting God love you? Here's the third one. Are you trying to do this on your own? You say, what does that mean? Love always implies someone else. Some of you are trying to love your spouse on your own. And you need to look at her and go, I don't know how to do this, but I want to. I want to have a relationship with you. I read this week that nobody matures in isolation. Doesn't happen. You know why God calls us to gather as a body? Because we need the body. Because we need people to go, hey, listen, I don't know if that was love. You need someone to be able to go to and go, I don't want to die this week. I want my own way. Are you trying to do this on your own? Here's the last one. Where do you need to die? For me, if I'm being honest, and this is a repeat death in my soul, is that this morning and even last night, I said, God, control's got to go. Bob said something in the message last week. I don't even know if he meant to say it, but he said, you were never designed to be in control of your life. Don't be drunk with wine. Be filled with the Spirit. So maybe yours is comfort. Maybe you're willing to love until it gets a little icky and then back up. Maybe yours is timing. Maybe yours is the control. But if we are going to be people who love, we have to set it down. And here's why. Here's the hope. Here's the motivation. We are able to love because God has loved us. If you feel this morning that you're like, well, you kind of messed up. I thought I was doing pretty good. I thought I'd come out of this series and now I was trying to love, and yeah, you all messed me up again because I hadn't thought about love as dying. Here's the cool thing. God always takes his love and meets it where our love falls short. That's the cross. That's the gospel. Love always means dying. Anything less isn't love. Will you pray with me? Jesus, we are incredibly grateful that you showed us love. Lord, it is because of your love that we are able to love you. It is because of your love that we are able to love other people. And God, Lord, I pray that you would help us today to ingrain in our minds the concept that every time that you talk about love in the scripture, that it always has the context of moving outside of ourselves and into other people, always giving up everything. Lord, we need that framework if we are going to step into our homes and in our communities, in our churches, in the way that you have called us to. You have called us. You said the greatest commandment is to love God and to love people. God, I pray you would help us to die to what we want and to step into who you are. Jesus, we love you. We're grateful for your love for us. In your precious name.